understand auto enrolment, understand the importance, and are clear about what you're doing. One of the big factors about auto enrolment is pricing. So, how do you position it with a client to make sure that the pricing's right? But also, how do you ensure that you've got the processes in place, or working in partnership with somebody who's got the processes in place, so that the solution that you deliver to the client is delivered compliantly? And I will say this now, I'm sure I will say it again as time goes on. Auto enrolment isn't only about pensions, it's as much about systems and processes, and software actually as it is to do with pensions. So we need to make sure that the processes are in place, are really clear and robust. Then I'm going to talk about how we position our proposition and how we talk about what we do. And what I want to do is just split that into 3 stages. So stage 1 is the report. So before we engage with the client, we produce a report. Stage 2 is implementation. So putting everything in place to get that client, that employer over staging date. And then stage 3 is ongoing. So what do we do to make sure that client's looked after on an ongoing basis? And what I'll do is, for stage 1, talk about how to position and charge for the report, but also talk about how to present it effectively. Then we'll talk about stage 2 and stage 3. And most importantly, the key factor is a lot of our auto enrolment work is likely to come from people we work with professionally. So that comes from HR professionals, accountants, lawyers, people like that. So how do we engage with those individuals and those firms to make sure that we work with them well? And then I'll answer any questions. So let's talk a little bit about the background of auto enrolment. Now, I'm assuming if you're on the webinar, you know a bit, and if you don't, you're more than welcome to ask any questions you've got. But let me just highlight some important points that I think are really, really useful to understand. Firstly, the rules were established back in the Pensions Act 2008. There's been some slight changes in 2011. But when you talk to a lot of employers, what we find is they don't actually realise that they're in a position where the auto enrolment regulation is actually quite a few years old now. The basis of auto enrolment is taken from some global examples. In particular, Australia. Australia's got the most effective auto enrolment policy in place. It's called Super. You've probably heard of it, and I think that's a brilliant name for a pension, or far better than pension. I'd rather have a Super. And weirdly, countries like Denmark and Chile have got auto enrolment schemes in place, and they're seen as the most stable pension schemes in the world. There's some research by Mercer's that confirmed that recently. The other important thing to confirm in terms of background is large employers are already in. So large employers are already in to auto enrolment. It's been successful, and you're in a position where that intends to continue. Our personal experience with the employers we've worked with already is that opt-out, the amount of people opting out of auto enrolment is a lot less than we expected. So for the scheme that we staged recently, we had 1,100 people going through. We expected opt-out rates of between 25 and 30%, and it's actually more like 12%. So effectively, we think that although people have got the opportunity to opt out, the appetite for doing that is going to be a lot less. So can you go to the next slide for me, please? Okay, so the other thing to consider when it comes to auto enrolment, and I'll just put that to the side for now, is auto enrolment is a massive, a huge opportunity. In the next 6 months, any firm that employs over 62 people will have reached their staging dates. By 2014, 18,000 companies will have a workplace pension, and by June 2015, there'll be 10,000 firms, smaller firms, going in every single week. That's going to go up by the summer of 27, and that will be 135,000 a month. So we're in a position where it's a huge opportunity just because of the size and the numbers of firms that need to comply, but it's also an opportunity to ensure that as financial planners, as financial planners, we're uh, we're in a position where we make the most of the opportunity we've got. So the way I see the opportunity is threefold. Firstly, it's an opportunity to ensure that you gain high quality clients. And in our experience, that's been the MDs and FDs of the businesses we help with auto enrolment. Um, it's also an opportunity to engage profitably with a large number of people. So there's opportunities down the line to help those people in a number of different areas. And auto enrolment work isn't only a case of future profitability, it's also can be profitable in its own right. And I'll explain a little bit why and how as we go on. But the timescales are really short. So effectively, if you're looking to get involved in the with medium-sized employers, the timescale of involvement is now. It's over the next 9 months. But bear in mind that we are in a position where the firms that need apply will likely need 3 to 6 months to prepare. So in the next 9 months, all those firms are reaching their staging dates. They need 3 to 6 months to compare. So we need to start talking to those clients today.
And also, Chris, if you'd like to talk a bit more about the proposition that we're talking and how to address the solution to auto enrolment for these clients. At the moment, it's largely around these size firms, and that by January of next year, for the smaller size firms, we'll have a different proposition that will meet their needs.
Yeah, so the proposition we've got in place at the moment is designed to meet the mid market. So it's the firms between 50, 60 employees up to 800. That's our mid market proposition. However, we appreciate the fact that for smaller firms, the pricing needs to be slightly different. The amount of work involved potentially is less and more automated, and we'll have a proposition delivered for the smaller firms by January. So that's our commitment there. Okay, so let's talk about best practice, because whilst auto enrolment is a huge opportunity, there's also some risks and threats to your business that need to be considered. And what I'm going to do is just talk about best practice and the sort of issues you might need to consider. One of the issues firms and advisors face, and one thing we considered as a business, is capacity. So, most of you listening will already have full days managing your existing business, and taking the time out to research and develop a brand new auto enrolment proposition is one of the last things on your mind. Now, only you can make that choice in terms of developing your own proposition or partnering with somebody who can. But having worked out your proposition, there's still an issue with capacity in terms of delivering what you've promised. Also, it's important to ensure that when you get involved with auto enrolment, there are risks involved. Many of your private clients will have an auto enrolment client. There will be business owners. So, effectively, is somebody going to come in, look after their auto enrolment, and potentially have a risk of taking the private client business? So the question we've just put a poll up. The question we're asking is,
are you looking, the clients that you've got for auto enrolment, we just have an understanding of what the audiences is out there is, what size firms are they, how many employees do they have? So that's, you can just quickly click on that. That would be brilliant. Carry on.
okay, so the poll's in action. I can see it moving. I feel like I'm on. I don't know it's like the general election. Actually, I'm quite excited about a little poll. So that's good stuff. Hopefully you're there in terms of that. Um, so capacity is an issue. Um, we talked about capacity. We talked about risks. Many of your private clients will have auto enrolment requirements, and it's whether you want to get involved in that market or tell your clients that you actually can't help them. Um, and are you happy or willing to open a window for other advisor firms to build a relationship where you sit? Now, I see it in three ways. You've got firms who don't play in this market and decide that this isn't their thing. You've got companies who firmly believe this is their thing, and then you have firms who partner up and say, actually, it's not my thing, but I know somebody who can deal with it. That's the way I see it. But the important thing is, building something the right way and looking at the right way to do it. And we believe that that's building an auto enrollment position proposition comes in three clear points. Okay, so let's.
Do you want to share the results of
Yep, sure. Do you want to do that?
Yeah, so thanks very much for doing that poll there. Just for feedback for all of you, 62% of you who are listening do have clients with 60 or more employees. Only 13% of you don't, and 17% are actively looking for those size firms. So this proposition will fit in perfectly with that.
Right. Okay, so let's just discuss the three pieces of a good auto enrollment solution. Firstly, it's clear proposition. Firms who are really serious about auto enrollment are really clear in terms of what they're delivering. They know what they're going to provide and how they're going to provide it, and most importantly, when, because the timescales on this are tight, and they need to be able to communicate it effectively to their employer clients. The proposition, we did a lot of research in the market before we got involved, and we found that the solutions that made most sense to us split their services clearly. And they split their services in three ways. Firstly, a report, so a route map to compliance for employers who need it. Secondly, an implementation, so if there's your route map, how do we implement that to make sure that you comply? But bear in mind that auto enrolment compliance doesn't stop at just getting somebody over their staging date, it lasts forever. So effectively, the ongoing service was as important, if not more important, than the other two. And with the research that we completed, one of the things that was important to us is that the proposition was transparent and fairly charged, and you'll see how we've done that. Second, systems, and I've said it once. I'm sure I'll say it more than twice, but here's the second time. Um, Employer duties and auto enrolment isn't really about pensions. You need pensions in place, but it's more about systems and project management than anything else. And that point can't be stressed enough. Now, I believe the system comes in two parts. Firstly, the planners and advisors need to ensure their own systems are robust enough, particularly when dealing with auto enrolment work, or they partner with somebody who's built that. And secondly, systems need to be in place to help employers comply with employer duties by changing and amending their clients' business processes. With the firms we've worked with, and we've worked with some quite large firms, what we found is that the quality of the data they've got from payroll doesn't do the job for auto enrolment, and we've had to do some changes in their systems to help them do that. But we've learned loads from that, and therefore it's been really useful to do. Um, Part three for us is access to high quality software. So you've got your clear proposition, you've got the systems in place, and like anything in the world of pensions, investments, or any form of financial planning, everything's now moving to a systemized, automated, computer based process, and auto enrolment fits that perfectly. Because the most efficient time of running these systems just isn't with people; it's with software. And what you need to do is make sure that the software you're using is robust, flexible, and meets the needs of the employer. We've conducted a bunch of different research comparing both free provider middleware and the open market software out there. And for a number of reasons, we think that jargon free benefits is one of the best on the market, and we're happy to share the reasons why. Um, and again, it's up to you to research and build your own proposition, or negotiate access with high quality software providers before you move forward. I suppose the key factor with a lot of the free provider focused software, and the reason that as a proposition we decided not to use it, is just down to flexibility. You look at some of this software, you look at the employers who might have two or three pen schemes in place with different providers, and you you find that you're in a position where it actually doesn't do the job as well as it needs to, and you need something that actually cuts the mustard and stands up to scrutiny, and that's where jargon free. We've kicked the tires, we've looked at everything it does, and it does the job really, really well. So we're more comfortable with that. And now we get a look at we now know that Bridget likes Adele, which is great. Okay, so in terms of pricing, so let's talk about what we do.
Can you just mention one of the things about the middleware that we've chosen to use for geography benefits? It's not just about the flexibility that it can provide and how it can put solutions in practice today, but when we're talking about future business and being able to go in longer term and add things on to be able to make sure that auto enrolment continues to bring in business for you.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that auto enrolment actually is a huge has the potential to be a huge Trojan horse. So effectively, if you've got a auto enrolment scheme in place with the right middleware, not only does it do the job from a compliance perspective, but it also sits as a really really useful hub for potentially more business. So, for example, if you've got a middleware with a provider, what you won't be able to do is put group life on that software, or group income protection, or any form of employee benefit that you can recommend. The benefit of having really good independent middleware is you've got the potential to do that, and that's quite powerful. Now, I'm not suggesting that that will be the market. Actually, I think most people are in a position where they're just trying to comply. But looking forward and looking sort of 2, 3 years in the future, there's the potential that that's the case. Okay, so let's take out. Let's talk about pricing. Okay, and we're in a position where we, as I said, part of the a clear proposition is setting out your pricing, setting it out really well, and being in a situation where you're clear in terms of what it does. And we believe that a fair and a marketable cost for the initial report is about three grand. Now, if you decided to work in partnership with us, what we'd do is we'd charge you £1,500. That means you'd get £1,500, and we'd get £1,500, and you charge the employer £3,000. But as you can see, a lot of the responsibilities for building the report are down to us, and what you'll have is access to a really good quality report. Now, one important thing to cover off there: you can get reports from pension providers for free. Personally, I'd never go into a decent employer with one of those reports. And the reason being is because effectively you need to make sure that you are different from your competition. And what we've tried to do is build a report designed to ensure that the employer understands that you really know your stuff. Once that's done and the employers agreed with that, our suggested pricing proposition is £19 for implementation. This is stage 2, is £19 plus VAT per employee, and from that you get £12, and the AE advisory group gets 7. And we're in a position where as you can see there's some responsibilities in terms of making sure that you put things in place. But we also look at making sure that all the employee communication is done, which is one of the most underestimated aspects of auto enrolment. Setting everything up online, building the middleware, certifying the scheme, registering with a pensions regulator. But your job is to make sure that we're getting the information we need to do that. And then you've got stage 3. So effectively, stage 3 is making sure that on an ongoing basis the employer complies with the regulation. And we in terms of pricing, we understand that you want some flexibility around this. This is the feedback we've got. So we've said £3.99 to £7.99 per month. Um, is the sort of scale you want to be looking at. The minimum 3-year period, and the reason for that is that we contract with the middleware, we contract with JFB for a minimum 3-year period, so it's important that your contract with the employer equals that. And in terms of the split between the cost, it's a 50-50 profit split. And when I say profit, I mean profit after middleware. Typically, the middleware costs us £1.50 to £2 250 per person per employee. So we're in a position where what we do is split the profit with you. Okay, so the next um, factor is how to position and charge for the report. Um, and I don't know why I was pulling that face in that video. That is possibly the weirdest face I've ever pulled in my life. But let's just talk about what I'd suggest you do at the initial meeting. The reason that's on there is because we've actually got a more detailed video talking about this. So, a couple of things that I do at the initial meeting, and these are the things that have tended to win us contracts in the past. Um, Firstly, show your expertise, and that talk. And when I talk about showing your expertise, I talk about talking about some of the background issues we discussed at the start. So the fact that auto enrolment isn't new, it's been established in many companies worldwide, and just so people have got an understanding of your depth of knowledge as well as just the regulatory stuff. One thing that was really useful for us is taking time to understand the client's business. So not only the day-to-day functioning and how it affects auto enrolment, but just take some time to see how they engage. What's the culture like? Who's the best person to speak to in certain subjects? You know, real sort of digging deep stuff in terms of the business, so that you've got an understanding of what you do. And what we try and do with that information is reflect it in the report. So the understanding of that business is confirmed to the client. One of the things that we're finding many employers are doing at the minute is just leaving it to the last minute. Um, and what we need to do in many of our presentations is ensure that the employer is clear that they haven't got much time, and they need to take action as soon as possible. And highlight the method behind the report. Highlight the fact that it's independent, tailor-made, and not dependent on a provider. Because what you want to deliver is a professional service, and not just talk through a free report that you got from giving data to a provider. Sorry, Bridget.
I was going to say one of the other things that you've mentioned before, Chris, is that quite often when you're going to see firms of this size, you're not the only person they've asked in to have the conversation about helping them out with auto enrolment. And if you've got 5 advisors go in and 3 of them are using the free report from whichever provider they've chosen to, then it's not making yourself stand out and be seen as the expert.
Yeah, yeah. What we're finding is in the mid-sized market, that's exactly what's happening. We aren't the only firm tendering for this sort of work. So anything we can do to make us special, make us different, make us the person to approach, we'll do it. And we just felt when we started tendering for the schemes that we started tendering for, a provider report just wouldn't do the job. So we decided not to use it. And through our report, what you've got is each element of the report has got just clear actions the employer needs to take every step of the way, um, and then it all comes down to just saying this is what we're delivering, and asking for the money, really asking for the money to conduct the initial work. And everything I've spoken about is just designed to ensure that you're clearly different enough to win the business. In terms of how to present the report, and Bridget, can the webinar people on the webinar get access to parts of the report, or is that in the members site?
Um, the report is in the member site, but we've done again a more complete video about how to present the report, and you have access to see what's a few.
Okay, and that's available in the free content. Is that available today, or?
What we'll do is everything that we're talking about, the links and the resources, we'll send you an email after this webinar in the next couple of days so that you have access to that.
So really worth looking at the video that talks through the report. But I'll just give you some headlines. Again, as I've said, show that you've truly understood the business by putting as much information you've gained from the original meeting in the report.
So some of the examples would be like if you've got a retailer and how that business has got different challenges to somebody who's only got an office worker, or if you've got seasonal workers. And so it talks around understanding exactly what their issues are rather than generic.
Yeah, so some of the issues we've faced working with employers. I mean, we've got a couple of retailer clients, and we're in a position where with the retailer clients, what we've found is that they've got 0 hours workers, and that's got an implication to how we build the scheme. We've got individuals who are seasonal, so we've got a lot of people coming up to Christmas who are in a position where they'll work over the Christmas period and then stop, and that's got an implication. But you really need to dig deep to understand the sort of people within the business and what issues are going to apply. One really important one, and one that we're doing some work on at the minute, is a recruitment business. So this recruitment business thought that they were staging in a couple of years' time, when in actual fact, because they've got temporary recruits that have got contracts through the agency, they're actually staging in April. So the more time you take to understand the business and how the rules impact them, the better it's going to be. Um, and again, understand the business, reconfirm the fact that employer duties and auto enrolment is more about compliance systems than it is about pensions. And spend some time focusing on certification. So, if you don't know what certification is, you're allowed to to pick the percentage that you put your scheme through on. So effectively, you can have 7, 8, or 9%, but the way that the salary and income that's taken into account is calculated is different at 7, 8, or 9%. Now, our report does that for you. Okay, it does the maths around certification and tells you what the best certification level for that particular client is. And we've found that actually it can make tens of thousands of pounds of difference a year for the larger employers, admittedly, but a huge amount of difference a year just by doing that certification and getting it right. And then it's about confirming the importance of a solution for the entire workforce. Um, it's about making sure that everybody has a pension scheme available. So everybody from the guy who works 10 hours a week all the way through to the managing director of the business. And we're in a position where um, auto enrolment requires everybody who's employed to have access to a solution. Even if they're not in a position where they need it straight away, they need to have access to a pension solution. And that might mean split schemes. So that might mean one scheme for the employed management and another one for the temporary workers, but that needs to be considered. And it's important to point that out. Um, and as part of our report, we provide our middleware research and highlight the difference between free middleware software through a provider and paid for middleware software. And we think that's quite powerful. And right at the end of our report, we've just got an implementation plan. So we've talked about all this. We've talked about what you need to do, but how practically do you do it, and what do you do um, in terms of next steps and costs. So it's important that that's in place. Sorry. Okay. So what I'm going to do is pass you on to Matt, who's going to talk to you about positioning and charging for stage 2 and 3 of the report.
Right. Okay, right. We believe actually that stage 2 and stage 3 should be agreed together. You can't really do one without the other. And the reason behind that is that if you're going in to implement auto enrolment for a company and then you walk away before the ongoing compliance, or they don't agree the ongoing compliance with you, potentially still only doing half the job, because the ongoing compliance actually really starts from the next pay reference period, which for say weekly paid staff would be within a week's time. So you can't really just walk away and leave them in limbo. And to be honest, there's no value in them just asking you to do half the job. So there's a huge amount of work really for the ongoing compliance. And as Chris said earlier, this actually lasts forever. So okay, there's effectively a 3-year tie-in in the software contract, but you can agree that again at the end of the third term. And we actually believe for most people out there, the IFAs, the real long-term profit comes in stage 3. And I did a brief calculation. So if you manage to get 1,500 employees through into auto enrolment, and your profit for that was say £1 a month, that's going to give you £1 per member per month. That's going to give you £18,000 profit per year just from the stage 3. Now that's an incredible amount of work, really, for effectively what will be largely automated through the middleware software. That's not bad. We've obviously done a lot of independent research on the middleware, which we call the magic black box. This is a bit that speaks for to the pension via the payroll, and we think that's hugely important. There's an awful lot of middleware solutions out there. In fact, there's just been released in the last week, I think Sage have released one, which apparently is not very automated, so they just provide letter templates for the employers to provide out. We think it actually needs to be as automated as possible, hence why we've chosen the jargon free. And that really just gives the total flexibility for the employers. Chris has already mentioned about this as well. Future business possibilities. Of course, you can add in all sorts of employee benefits, so childcare vouchers and dentist treatment and group life and all that. But also, you're getting ready-made business owner clients if they're not your clients already. So the spin-off business from that could be, immensely huge. So if you're working in that market, you look after owner-manager businesses, you do a fantastic job for them in terms of auto enrolment. You're going to be the go-to person that's used for this. Yes, please.
She says.
Okay. All right. This is the bit where I think a lot of people look like they need help from. Judging by the poll, 20% of you are looking to find new clients to work with. Obviously, your existing clients, some of those will need help. So if you've got clients that own businesses, obviously the first point of call really will probably be you. And if it isn't you, it will be somebody else. So, if you don't want people, other IFAs sniffing around your business, and believe me, there's going to be an awful lot of competition on this already. I'm seeing that at first-hand experience. So you need to be in there with a proposition, or somebody else will. Obviously, accountants, great place to start looking for potential new clients. And usually, for a lot of people, we're finding now that employers are going direct to accountants asking for help. Now, of course, accountants don't want to be involved in this. They haven't got a clue really where to start, but they need third parties to refer clients to. So certainly Chris and I, in our own business, are doing an awful lot of work at that at the moment. Certainly finding that. Hang on, what's happening here? Certainly finding that certainly one firm of accountants I spoke to, they have an existing IFA that they third party all their investment work to. They actually turned around and said they didn't want to do auto enrolment for their clients, and it's actually soured the relationship. Where now I may be able to step in and do that for them and get all the other work as well. So huge opportunity with accountants. Shouldn't really be underestimated. We've got some kit that's available in our member section, which are some approach letters, which we've drafted, which have worked quite well. We can, help certainly provide those. We also think it's important, if you're going in to speak to an accountant or employers directly, that you have a firm agenda to follow in that first meeting. As Chris said, you don't want to be going in with one of these slightly loose, free provided reports that anybody else can pick up off the internet. You want to go in with a very clear agenda and a very clear presentation on what you're offering and why you're better than everyone else. So you need obviously the technical knowledge, but you need a framework to follow in that meeting. If you are looking as well for new potential clients, there's some great software that you can use. I use a bit of kit called OneSource, where I can find employers within any industry or geographical location or within turnover or whatever, or number of employees, and I can pinpoint exactly who I want to target. And also, one amazing bit of this kit as well is you can actually target auditors. So I can go in and type in all the names of accountants in, say, Leicestershire where I work. That will then provide a list of all the limited companies that they look after. So I can even go to all these firms of accountants that I know and say, look, here's all the staging dates for all your firms that are coming up. I think you need to action this and make sure that they're going to be compliant. It's amazing that they know that you're on the ball. Then they're probably not too keen on how you've got the information, but it's all there in the public domain. It's all Companies House information, so there's nothing secretive about it. But if you want to know how to approach accountants, that is really probably where you're most likely to get certainly large bits of business. And when we actually start looking at the micro businesses, those that run payroll, there will be a solution that we're offering, I think, by the end of January, Chris mentioned as well. So all sorts of bits of information we can give you that can go out and get that business that you need.
And so the approach letters, the agendas, the presentations, that's all part of what we're saying. That's part of your membership. So it's like we did the survey, which many of you answered for us, and thank you very much for that. And asked, what is it that you're looking for? So everything that you said that you were looking for, that's what we've put together, so that we can help you just to go out and do as much business as you want with the auto enrolment. Now, we do have the opportunity here for you to all ask questions. Now, when we checked earlier to see if you could hear us okay, we didn't receive any chat. So hopefully that is working. So you should have at the bottom, there should be a chat facility. If you've got any questions, send them through to there. If for any reason that there's an issue, because we're not seeing any chat come up, so if you are typing, we're not getting it, please send your questions to bridget@aeadvice.co.uk. And whilst we can't actually answer the questions live now on this webinar, what we will do is we'll put a part of all of these questions together, get the answers out to you, and email them out to you, so that you're still going to have all of your answers done. The other, oops, excuse me, we don't want to do that.